We are going to have a very special guest join us right now, and he's a dear friend of mine. I've known for almost 20 years, Charlie Kaupke from Stillwater, Oklahoma. He's on the board of directors for the National Bit, Spur, and Saddle Makers Association. We're talking about collectibles here. And Charlie, welcome to Western Sports Roundup.
It's an honor to be here. I've really been looking forward to doing this. And
Me too.
It is a collectors association, and that's what we're here to talk about, is collecting today.
Well, the thing about Western sports is on the grow, no doubt about it. And as Western sports become popular, so does the items that we use, the bits, the spurs, the bridles, the saddles, and
anything Western.
Anything Western to go along with Western sports. The tools of the trade, if you will. Tell me a little bit of history real quick about the association, how far back you go.
It was formed in the late 1970s out of a show that went on in Loveland, Colorado. A group of them put it together. And that show's still going at different management, but it's now in Cheyenne in the late summer, but a Western show. And we've got several shows around the United States. Amarillo ever March has been like 39 years old, and they have a big one in Mesa. They have several on the West Coast where you can buy, sell, and trade these type of products. But we've had a board of directors, and all along we have a crisis fund. We've helped our makers out and our members out over the years. We also have a scholarship fund for some young person, or don't have to be young. If Justin McKee said, I want to go to engraving school and needed financial assistance, we'd help you out. And that's what the program's for.
I've had a lot of my friends that are artists, if you will, that are bit and spur makers that say, hey, we need to do a show on the Cowboy Channel about actually building some of these bits, and hopefully we'll get there. But this is a good start.
Yes, sir.
Why do people, or how did people get started years ago and when collecting bits and spurs?
To me, the big root goes clear back to your B Westerns, where they sat there as young people in the 30s even, and 40s, and saw Roy and Gene and their spurs and their regalia, and it really sparked an interest. Now, my dad started collecting and trading spurs in, I would say, the early 60s. And it really wasn't a thing then, because I remember him buying stuff for $10 and $25. Today's worth thousands. But the same way with the guns he traded. I was looking through some of his old ledgers yesterday, and you know, they've gone up 1,000 or 5,000 fold. But it's a Western spirit that lives within all of us.
And it's a great investment. Because
it has been.
It has been so far, and I think that's going to continue. Give us a little history on some of the most popular bit makers and why.
Well, today, I'm going to back up into the 1870s or 80s. This is a bit, and if you'll notice how narrow it is,
yes, very.
Just like cowboy boots from 140 years ago was a lot smaller, people was smaller, horses were smaller.
Right.
But this is a very old forged but excellent condition. This would go into some early years right here. This was, I call a Yuma prison. I believe this gal leg bit's what they call a gal leg style, came out of the Yuma.
Let's say that slower, a gal leg. And let's show people that first of all, because that's a big part of a lot of bits that are made. That shank is a dance hall gal's leg, actually.
It is. And then you go back into a comparable early age. This will be a Canyon City, Colorado prison bit. I've seen quite a lot of the spurs. They're still rare, but the bits, and especially of this style, and that's been in our family for probably since the 70s, but that bit goes back probably into the 30s. And it's a great representation of prison. And this bit here I brought along because it's very special to me. That's a owl bit. It's marked, so it's one of the later McChesneys, probably after they moved to Nakona. But they was at Pauls Valley, Oklahoma. But this belonged to Don Wilcox at one time.
Tell us about Don.
Don was a trick rider, a specialty yak in the early days of rodeo, become a great horse trainer. This ended up with Mr. Rodeo, Cecil Cornish.
Oh, yes. I know.
At Wacomas, Oklahoma.
Right.
And that is where we got the bit, is from Cecil, and I've had it ever since. But it's an Oklahoma maker owned by two men I had the pleasure of knowing that was great horsemen, but also great part of the rodeo world. So it has a special meaning. And I didn't bring a good representation of a Texas overlay bit, but here is a Fleming. I love it. I love the style of it, but this bit probably came out of the 50s or 60s.
Where's Fleming from?
Fleming was from California, Dick Fleming. And this is some just fine braided Romal reins that's on it, and it's something I really enjoy looking at.
That's a very West Coast looking
Very
bridle.
West Coast.
Top to bottom, that bridle is all California.
And this one's kind of a hodgepodge. Got the good fine Romals again, Ray Anderson buckle. This is actually a Dennis Moreland rawhide headstall, but this is a Grajava bit. And they're one of the most collectible bits that's out there. Eduardo Sr. Grajava started making these in the 40s. Today, his grandson is making them, and horsemen love them because they ride.
What do some of these bits cost if you were going to try to go buy one to collect?
Oh, to buy some of these bits, you know, this bit here is a top end Fleming to me. It's a bit's going to be in the $500-600 range. This bit could be in the 2,000 range or a little more or a little less because it's really special. This little bit, although it's so old, don't have much value. It's not a lot of value.
You know, there's a lot of artistry to bits and spurs. The artistry to build and create. There's also an artistry in trading, trying to trade for that neck. There's a lot of satisfaction in when you make a good trade. How you feel about making a good trade, and that's a lot about this.
Well, I guess that's what I'm called to do because I've tried to do other things in life. This is all I do every day is trade bits and spurs. In fact, this one here is very California, but it's very contemporary. And you talk about the artistry of making, engraving, forging steel, but also the artistry of making one right good.
I love it.
We forget about that
that's right.
some, but these are some bits we have made in Mexico that we sell. But one other one is special to a lot of us in our country, Justin.
You've got about a half a minute, and I know where you're going.
This is a John Israel, probably the best. I've owned probably 200 of them. This is the best one I've ever owned mounted. John, if there's an icon in Northeast Oklahoma, it's John David Israel. And this is one of my personal using bridles right there.
As is mine. I haven't had 200, but I've had 2.
Yeah. Well, it's a pleasure to be here and to do this, and thank you for allowing me.
Where can we find more information?
He is putting it up on there, but you can go to Facebook. The NBSSCA is on Facebook. We have a web page. We also now have a YouTube page that we're just starting to post information on.
National Bit, Spur, and Saddle Makers Association. Saddle Collectors Association.
Yes, sir.
Is where you find that information. This is just one segment. We're going to talk about Spurs at another time. Charlie Kaupke, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Justin.
All right.